welcome and thank you for joining our webinar today focused on navigating COVID-19 in the workplace and our newest product, Business Intelligence. I'm Jason Schimpf, VP of Product Partner Programs and Education, and I'll be your host today. First and foremost, on behalf of everyone at AMAG, we hope you, your family, friends, and coworkers are all staying healthy in this unique time frame that we're living in right now. We have a lot of great things going on at AMAG, and these webinars provide important corporate updates, drive awareness of AMAG's new products and features, share best practices, and dive into unique product features that will help you differentiate your company from others when you team up with us. If you have any questions today, please type them in the box and we'll address as those that we don't get a chance to address today. We will follow up after this webinar. For the agenda today, we've got Dan Bismeyer, a rookie, first time on this webinar, presenting on the navigating the COVID in the workplace. We've got our veteran, Jonathan Moore, who will talk about business intelligence. Unfortunately, Kim Rayfeld is on vacation in her basement this week, so she sends her regards and says hi to everybody. Over the last 5 years, AMAG's grown beyond access control to transform ourselves into a total solution provider focusing on reducing cost, mitigating risk, and increasing compliance with external regulation. In our previous webinars, we briefly introduced what AMAG is doing in different areas of our business beyond access control to help our channel and end users solve problems in becoming an end-to-end solution with a robust ecosystem of best-of-breed technologies. All those webinars and much more are available for free on our e-learning system, which you can see at the bottom of the screen there, and our YouTube channel, which Jonathan will talk about a little bit later. If you have any questions throughout this, please type them in the box, and we'll answer as many as we can before we finish up. Let's go ahead and turn it over to Dan.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. Welcome, everyone. So like you said, we're going to be discussing COVID-19 in the workplace, but actually a little different spin on it. I'm going to be focusing on the post-COVID-19 time because really the last couple of months have been COVID-19 and in the workplace, which really has for most people been at home. Most businesses shut down. So the focus I wanted to bring was as we return to work, what are the top of mind things? What technologies can help out? What processes do we think are going to be the most helpful to businesses? And a lot of what I'm doing is going to be sharing information that I've gathered. I've spent the last couple months speaking with security leaders and business leaders from multiple industries and discussing best practices, what they have seen that hasn't worked, what has worked very, very well, what do they wish they had that would have helped. And I've been gathering that data and sharing it with all different leaders. So if you're on this call and you'd like to be a part of that audience, please shoot me an email. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, I'll collect your information and I'll share out a lot of best practices. But without further ado, we'll kind of get into discussing this. So where we go first, actually go back one slide. So where we go first is talking about what the new norm is going to be, because everyone that I've spoken with agrees there's not going to be a return to normal, right? There's now been this realization that everything has changed in our world, and so normal is going to take on a new meaning. There's always going to be something different post-COVID-19. So returning to normal, we're going to look at bringing people back in, and a lot of companies that in the past have really held off implementing work from home solutions for their companies have done so for two main reasons. They haven't trusted their employees to be productive remotely, or they didn't have the right technologies to implement it. And so a lot of that has changed now. They've had to invest in technologies to work remotely so that they could stay afloat, and they've gotten to see how effective their workforces can be remotely. So as we return to the next phase and bringing people back in, a lot of those companies now are going to say, okay, I think long term we're going to maybe have to go with a hybrid solution where a whole lot of people are going to still be allowed to work from home, either permanently or in alternating shifts, and we're going to have to get more realize effectiveness out of the investment we made in these technologies. And so they're to then look to gain back some of that efficiency in reducing roof space and shrinking facilities. So where does that impact security? Well, the open office concept designs that were out there where they tried to appeal to younger generations, they tried to cram people into smaller areas, without walls, and try to increase socialization and minimize furniture costs. Well, a lot of that is now being looked at differently post-COVID-19 and said, wow, there's a lot of risk there, right? That's a lot of people crammed into small spaces, a lot of reuse and touching of computers where they were sharing workstations. And so a lot of people are predicting that trend is going to kind of fade away, and there's going to be more return to traditional workspaces, more compartmentalized offices, larger cubicle sizes, which for security, that's great because we like separation, right? The concept of least privilege access can be implemented, layers of security, chopping up the workforce into need-to-know groups. And so what we're going to be looking at then, and leaders like yourself are, okay, how do we now step in and re-implement some of the designs that we know are best for securing the workspace? So where can we put card readers to separate these? How do we divvy up the groups into access communities? So, using something like, Symmetry Connect, obviously, to divvy up the workforce into their particular work groups and assign permission sets for them really comes in handy. But what the hot trends now are going to be is not having to touch things. So when you're talking about card readers, everyone's wanting to go with touch-free. So luckily we have the Bluetooth readers, right? And so you can either use those as your primary credential and avoid touching all the different card readers, but you can also use them. A lot of places still want to stick with their proximity as their first go-to because they're not really touching the reader; they're holding up close. Well, but you still have secondary, more secure areas, your data centers, et cetera, where you have multi-factor authentication in place. So instead of card and PIN, recommend using Bluetooth readers there, avoiding the PIN, the keypads. This is a big potential use for those blue readers and where they come in handy. So taking that touch-free a step further, we can look at other mechanisms. Now you don't need to touch the reader. What about the door? Well, there's a lot of automated door solutions that you can tie in and integrate with the access control. So it's great to not have to touch the card reader, but when you authenticate through the reader, if it can open the door for you or open a turnstile, then that's another advantage that you can introduce to the workforce and reduce the amount of contamination. There's also technologies that are being thrown around, and right now I kind of see it as a knee-jerk. A lot of the temperature control solutions that are being talked about. Well, we don't sell those. We can consult on them. G4S actually has a whole process around this if you want to find out more on that. But what we can do is offer guidance, right? We're your trusted advisors. We want to talk to you about the pros and cons of those technologies, what you can do as an alternative, or if you're implementing those, what you might want to consider for best case. So I'm trying to steer people away from getting things that aren't integrated, because that's if you get a standalone technology for a high price with questionable accuracy, it's out there for a couple of months, and then what do? You're going to shelve it. It's going to sit on a shelf somewhere. So if you're being forced to move in that direction, talk to us. We can make recommendations on, hey, what would integrate with Symmetry? What then brings you added value? What can you then, in post-COVID-19, if you're not being forced to measure body temperatures, what can you use that technology for? Can you monitor servers for overheating? How about boilers, and other mechanical machinery? Can you, identify, people for occupancy? So there's a lot of different things in there that you can use as alternative uses for those kind of technologies. So again, talk to us. What's even cooler on the technology side, which I think is more useful than temperature, is the PPE detection. So if you look at a lot of these sensors, and you can tie these in with access control, where you can come up and if your facility is saying everyone has to have a face mask to be in our facility, you can have a camera right by your entry card reader. Someone presents their card, it authenticates. It doesn't open the door yet. It defers over to the camera now. The camera looks at your face and uses basic, more or less facial identity, and it's going to detect whether you have a face mask on. And not only that, if it's properly worn, if it's covering both nose and mouth. And if you don't have that in place, or if you're not wearing it properly, it won't open the door. And if it detects that and it's read your card credential, then it unlocks the door. And there's some really good solutions out there that are effective at that. Again, working in concert with Symmetry Access Control to enable you to effectively get in. Now, alternate long-term use for those, you think of clean rooms, you think of chemical factories, you think of all kinds of places that are having ongoing PPE requirements. Those have a lot of extended use beyond just virus circumstances. So we encourage people to think about that. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so there's two functions in business that are extremely important that I touch on from time to time that unfortunately often get stuck in IT and go to IT to die or be run ineffectively more often than not. And those two functions are insider threat and business continuity. Those two, I make the strong case for. Both are much more effective in security. You've heard me probably talk about insider threat before. Business continuity is the hot thing right now, right? So we've all seen companies have to go back and look at their business continuity plans because of the pandemic. A lot of companies, what they found was IT owned it, and so what it was a resiliency plan. It was plans on, where do we have redundancy for our critical servers? How do we back up our data? How can we replicate this? And it wasn't focused on business process, which is what business continuity should be. It should envelop everything, both the data side and the logical side, your business process. So if you are looking at after actions and talking to your leaders, your company leaders, and saying, how are we going to make this better and be more effective, I would say look to take over business continuity and implement a proper management tool like Symmetry Incident Management. So it's not advertised as business continuity tool, but what it brings is all the necessary functions. Site management. You can map out all your sites, upload information about the sites. You can upload your business continuity plans, your contact list. You can assign them to people with action items. You can set triggers in there that if X happens, that people get notifications. Another cool feature that we thought of that you could use it for is tracking virus spread across your enterprise. So it's got the global map, and it knows your sites, and it takes feeds from your HR data as well as what you're inputting. So if people are getting infected, it can be annotated in their personnel records by HR, or you can enter it as incident reports. And now it's analyzing and processing all the data, and you can see growth of the virus, spread of the virus across the map. You can see hotspot areas, your sites that are going up or down, and that can trigger you to make better decisions on how you implement different processes, being able to visually see that. So keep that in mind. It's a great tool that can be used for that. Next slide, please. All right, guest. So a lot of, as we return workers to the workplace, we're also going to have visitors and contractors coming in. And we want to make sure that they are entering the process safely. So a big key to that is using an effective visitor management system like Guest, where you can pre-register them. You can customize the email that goes out to them and include medical screening questions, specific information about procedures at the site. When you get here, come in this way. We're going to require this PPE. Make sure you have a mask. We're only allowing 10 people in the lobby at a time, et cetera. All that can be included up front. You want to improve that visitor experience and make sure they know what to do and how to be able to conduct business properly. So being able to customize that, that email going out and that first touch with the customer is very important. And guest can do that very well, and and reach out to any AMAG person if you have it. We'd be happy to help you customize it and make it effective for you. And then also running the reports from guests, seeing who's been there. If someone in your facility tests positive, then maybe you want to be able to contact the visitors that have been there in the days since, and let them know, or on the day that that person was in the office, and you may want to let them know. So having that capability extremely important. Next slide. So a lot of security leaders that I talked to when doing after action discussions, they said while the rest of their business basically went to a work from home model, their security operations center was grounded, that they had to stay in the office because they had no capability to relocate. One of the hot things that they said they're being pushed by their leadership for is an ability to relocate their SOC, to let them go work from home or from alternate locations if need be. So one of the great ways you can do that is Symmetry Control Room. If you're looking for an ability to have a single pane of glass, to pull in your access control, your video, your building management systems, and be able to give operators all that capability in your SOC and allow them to then be able to go to alternate locations that have network access, including their home, and log in and have the same visibility, same situational awareness, same functionality, Symmetry Control Room can do that. So I'll throw in some disclosures. Like anything else, you're going to want to test for your unique capabilities. So if you're looking to do this, you talk to the IT. Are they going to have to reconfigure certain ports or open certain ports? And you test all this in downtime. But this is a great a great option for you to have to relocate effectively your SOC operation to alternate locations, even multiple. And when they log in, they get the same view that they had in the SOC. So fantastic capability to consider. Next slide, please. Symmetry Web. If all you're using is the thick client for managing your Symmetry, and you weren't aware of Symmetry Web's capabilities, it is a great low-cost option for you to be able to get almost all of the same functionality as your thick client from a remote capability through a browser or through your Android or iOS. So you see all the functions up on the slide. You can manage access rights and pre-enrollments and cardholder registrations. All of that critical functionality for your access control administrators can more easily be done remotely now. So if you want to send your administrators home to work from home or from alternate locations, this is a very important tool and very easy to deploy tool for you to keep in mind. Next slide. Symmetry Mobile. So Jonathan's done some recent webinars on this. If you were able to attend, you got a whole lot of information on them. I'll just briefly touch on this. So if you're looking long-term for a solution that's going to help you manage in a more distributed capability, Symmetry Mobile is incredible for this. So it enables you to handle your whole credentialing process remotely. Everything from bringing new employees on, and you can mail them out the badge and they can get a notice, they can get an email, and they can go and activate their credential. You can manage all of that remotely through Symmetry Mobile. So fantastic capability. Next slide. So that is at a high level kind of a summary of what I wanted to touch on, and really just based on the highlights of the conversations I had with security leaders. These were the most critical things that were top of mind for all of them for problems, and these were the solutions that kind of fit into those discussion points. So with that, I'm gonna turn over to Jonathan, and he's gonna bring you on a deep dive into business intelligence.
Thanks very much, Dan, and good afternoon to everybody on the webinar. Before I forget, just a reminder, you can enter any questions you may have for Dan or for myself into the Q&A box within WebEx. So we'd encourage you to enter any questions you may have. So Dan took you through a high-level tour of some of the different products within the AMAG Symmetry portfolio, and I'm going to wrap things up with a very quick overview of Symmetry Business Intelligence. So we're going to go pretty quickly here, but there are some resources at the end that I'll talk about on YouTube, and obviously you can reach out to us should you be interested in more of a deep dive into this product. But let's jump to the next slide. Okay, so starting with the actual problem that we're trying to solve here. The problem is data. We have a lot of data that is being generated, particularly in the access control system, and also in all the other ancillary systems that are integrated with the access control system. Our customers realize, and we've talked to a lot of our customers out there about this, they realize that there's value in that data, but they don't know how to extract it. This is something we've looked at very carefully, and data sets of this size, where you're looking for trends that may go back months or even years, it's impossible to look at this kind of thing manually and get any sort of real insights that we're going to be talking about today. So we needed to come up with a solution, which is what's resulted in our first release of our product we call Symmetry Business Intelligence. Let's jump to the next slide. Okay, so very quickly, this is something we've been looking at for a number of years now, at least about 2 years, that we've dedicated part of our sort of innovation budget, if you will, towards analytics. We knew this is something we had to get into. It was something we had to digest ourselves and really understand. And we went on a journey for about 2 years. We went with multiple partners, and we've really tried to understand what analytics can bring to physical security and what components make sense to the physical security market, right? What's good for physical security is not the same thing that's good for the logical side of the house that may have a different budget and different requirements, right? So we needed something that was specific to our industry, and I think we found that. So what we've produced is, as I said, is called Symmetry Business Intelligence, and it consists of 2 components. There's the analytics engine, which is really what crunches all the data and comes up with the insights, and that's the AMAG product that we've developed specifically. That connects to our Symmetry access control system and is capable of integrating with a number of other systems, and that's really the nuts and bolts of the system. Then on top of the analytics engine is the visualization layer. That's where you see all the pretty graphs and tables and data, and it's really where you see the results of what the analytics found. And that visualization layer is Microsoft Power BI at the moment. That's a fairly ubiquitous tool that's out in the market today. It's really easily available and widely used. So we're using that as a starting point. I will point out that it is technically possible to use other visualization layers that are out there as well, but this is the one that we've standardized on for now. So it's a fairly low cost, easy to implement solution. And we've got it now down to where it does not require any sort of custom expertise by data scientists or anything like that. This can get installed on top of your Symmetry access control system, usually on a separate server so that we're not affecting your production environment. It consumes the existing data and it starts to come up with insights almost within a few hours of consuming that data. So easy to implement, easy to get running and started, and doesn't require much customization or expertise like data scientists to be on staff or anything like that. So let's look at what it can do. Let's jump to the next slide. So phase 1 of Symmetry Business Intelligence, I want to stress that this is our first foray into analytics. It's exciting. I'm as director of product management here. I'm constantly having calls with engineering, with customers, with our sales team. We're talking about where this can go, what's working, what can we do better, how can we improve it. So we have a really good, well fleshed out roadmap at this point with features that'll continue to come. But in phase 1, what we've looked at is anomalous access control activity. So we're looking for unusual activity within the access control system. That could be denied transactions where my card is used at multiple doors where I do not have access. That could signify a problem. Maybe I'm lost. It could also signify I lost my card, something like that. Somebody else has it and they're trying to figure out where they can go. So we could be looking for that kind of activity where it's denied activity. But also, and more importantly, we're looking for anomalous allowed activity where people were let in. They were allowed to go through those doors, but it was still strange. So what I mean by that is, typically people are creatures of habit. right? Where we come in at the same time every day to work, we go through the same path, we go home around about the same time, and we do the same sort of things over and over in repetitive fashion. Well, this analytic system can detect and starts to build a template on each person where we know that this is what this person does under normal circumstances. Now, if they start to do something unusual, they start to come in the middle of the night or on weekends and accessing doors they don't normally access and acting in strange ways, the system will pick that up and will generally flag that activity for review. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this person has done something wrong. It just means they've done something you should be looking at, you should be paying more attention to. So we're trying to show you the insights that we've extracted from the noise, from all of that data that's out there. We're trying to show you these are the identities that you need to look at the moment. These are the 20 people, shall we say, that are acting a little strangely at the moment that may result in a higher risk or potential incident within your organization. And you should be proactive about reviewing what these people are doing and see if there's anything to it, or maybe it's just a false alarm. So let's look at it in a little bit more detail. Let's go to the next slide. So very quickly, I know we've only got a couple of more minutes here, but just in terms of how this works, I've really explained, the anomalous activity of, if the person starts doing strange things within the access control system, we're going to pick that up. What gets more powerful is if we can tie that in with data points from other systems as well. So the most simple example I can use in the time that we have left is, maybe my access control activity suddenly changes where I'm coming in on weekends and I'm acting in a strange fashion. That's one thing. That's one point that shows, okay, my risk score maybe went up a little bit because of that. But what if you could also tie that to the fact that I've given my 2 weeks notice to HR and I'm leaving the company in 2 weeks? If we can tie those 2 points together, that I'm acting strangely and now I've also given my notice, that builds a much clearer picture in terms of what risk this person may have. Now, if I have access to corporate data, intellectual property, anything like that, security really should be fairly proactive about now, keeping an eye on me and what exactly I'm doing within the organization. You can see on the screen, there's a lot of different data points. I don't have the time to get into all of it now, but the general idea is tying what we see in the access control system against some of these other data points gives you a much clearer picture of each person that you just simply could not get without a product like this. Let's jump to the next slide. So this is the last slide that really shows the product, and I know it's very small on everybody's screen right now, but the general idea, the thing I want to convey is the product consumes all the access control logs, all the allowed and denied events and all of that. And then it provides really unique, really easy to use ways of getting insights out of it. So I can filter that data by, as long as we can get the underlying data that supports all of this, but I can filter by region within the US, or I can filter by building or by department or anything like that. And I can start to see all activity that is going on. I can compare week over week in terms of how much traffic do I normally have at 8 a.m. in the morning. And all of a sudden this week I have zero traffic because maybe everybody's working from home in the current situation. Or maybe now when everybody comes back, we'll start to see that 9 a.m. we're starting to see major spikes in activity and things like that. So you can narrow it down to time of day, day of week, departments, buildings, regions, all of these things. And you can even filter of show me the high risk information, show me the, ignore all the low risk stuff that I don't need to look at. So I wanted to just convey that it really allows you to dive into your data and look at it in a variety of different ways that might be surprising to you in terms of what you find. We've piloted the product. It is released now, and we are engaging in demos and quotes and all sorts of things like that. And definitely seeing a lot of interest in the product, but it's also been piloted with a few customers, and they've really given us a lot of positive feedback in terms of some of the insights that they've seen within the data that they had no idea about until it was put in front of them. So let's jump to the next slide. So I know we are just crossing the half-hour mark here, and I'm virtually out of time. I wanted to just touch on what this product can offer, a really unique view into your data and a deep dive into any anomalous activity that it can find. So it allows you to really be proactive about securing your facilities. We're really trying to prevent a negative incident from occurring using this. We're trying to drive compliance because we're letting you see when your people are getting out of compliance with a product like this. So you can be proactive about getting them back in line with the rules before anything negative occurs. So that's the general idea. We will obviously be sending out some follow-up materials after the webinar, and embedded within the emails, there will be a link to our YouTube site where there is a much more in-depth look at Symmetry Business Intelligence up there. At the same time, reach out to your local sales reps and we'd be more than happy to answer questions, provide a full demo of the product or anything else that you're interested in. So with that, I will wrap up here, and obviously if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those. But I think I've used up all my time, so I'll hand it back to Jason.
Excellent, Jonathan. Thank you so much. We are a few minutes over the time slot here, but we're going to answer a couple questions that came in real quick. We appreciate you guys hanging with us for a few more minutes. If you guys have to go, understood. This will be recorded, or it is recorded, and it will be on our YouTube channel. So if you have to drop off, you can go listen to the last couple questions here. Jonathan, a couple questions for you. We have employees that work days for 2 weeks and then switch to nights for 2 weeks. Would the software pick this up? Would we be able to tell it when there's a shift change so it doesn't flag them?
Yeah, so this is one that's actually come up before, and it's not very easy to do, but it is possible. So I work closely with our VP of Engineering out in the UK, and him and I have discussed that in some detail at this stage, and we have some methods that we think can work. So we haven't actually fully tested it, just in all honesty, but we have a method for handling that longer term. So I'd be interested in looking at more detail, but we do think it is possible.
Excellent. One more. And can you give some generic examples of insights that your pilot customers have found? Maybe just one or two key ones that you're hearing feedback on, and then maybe as a follow-up or a future webinar, we can do a follow-up and say, hey, here's some more information about this this BI and other insights that we've had. So maybe the top 2 or 3 that you come across, Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah. So we've got a couple that are, and it's a great question. So what we've seen, and what's important to remember is really where a lot of the insights come is from allowed events. So it's pretty easy, let's be honest. Denied events will show up as alarms. If you're ever monitoring or just looking at standard reports, you're going to see those kinds of transactions. They come up, they really kind of get in your face in terms of somebody was denied in, right? Those are easier to find. The allowed in kind of events that you are allowed, that's where the insights are really coming. And, we've seen the typical things like, why did this person have to come in at 1 in the morning? We had no idea he was even there. And then they go and look in and they find, the alarm went off and that was the contact from the alarm company and he had to go in and disable it or something like that. But they weren't even aware it happened until they were looking in the analytics. The other one, and it's a very simple one, is we track who has what access within, so maybe I have 24/7 access to all facilities within the organization. That we flag that as a high risk because it's really not following the path of least privilege, where I should only have what I need. I should only have access to the areas that I need to perform my job. Well, a number of customers have noticed that they had a group of people that can go anywhere and do anything, and they had no idea. They didn't realize that those people had that access. So then they were able to go in and restrict what access those people had, thereby, securing and closing out any gaps in the security policy and not opening the door to a potential negative incident. And the last one, and I'll wrap up, is this coming in our next version, but this has come from so we say customer request or feedback, is customers are very interested in geographical regional separation of card presentations. So if I presented my card to a reader in Chicago and 5 minutes later I presented it to a reader in New York City, unless I have a teleporter, it's not possible for me to do that, right? So that means somebody must have cloned my card and we have some sort of security incident going on. Well, our next version is actually with little to no configuration is going to work out where each reader is essentially in your regional separation, and it will flag transactions like that. Just like with your credit card online, shall we say, where your card might get shut down or you'll get a notification because of suspicious things going on. Same sort of idea here, where we're saying this isn't possible. You must have some sort of card cloning going on that we need to make you aware of. So I know it's a bit long there, but I'll wrap it up at this point.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Dan, too, both you guys for co-hosting today. I really appreciated the content and the information you guys provided was fantastic. If anybody has any questions about this webinar or would like to know some more information, you could reach out to Dan or Jonathan directly, or you might want to just start with your local sales manager, and then they can navigate you to the proper place internally. So as always, this full webinar and all previous webinars will be on both our e-learning system and our YouTube channel. As soon as this webinar ends, a short survey will pop up in your browser. Please take a moment to fill that in so that we can make sure we're always delivering the best content that you guys would want to know about. Again, please stay healthy. Please stay safe in this goofy time that we're living in. And again, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next month, June 16th, same time at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Have a great rest of your day.